Hello everyone, I'm Kevin Flowers, a senior reporter here at the Erie Times-News, and today we have Erie County's Clerk of Elections with us, Doug Smith. Pretty timely because we had a story on page 1 of the Times-News today, paper trail that I put together, basically about the county's new voting machines, almost, what, $3 million worth of machines.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit today about where they came from, the features, and why the county had to buy these new voting machines. So, Doug, if you can give us a little bit of an overview on that.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here today, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Always.
And yeah, this is a very exciting time, I think, for elections here for Erie Countyans and really across Pennsylvania. And we've just been getting our equipment in the last couple weeks, and we're doing some assurance testing on it, kind of like what one might do if they got a new computer or something. You kind of have to set things up within the system itself. So this is not quite the end, but near the end of a journey that began, well, it began last year. Really, it began in the spring of 2018, and that's when Governor Wolf put out an executive order asking counties across Pennsylvania to replace their current systems with a voting system that had a paper trail or paper backup. And I guess it's worth noting that we have a paper backup, Kevin, in the sense that we have a ballot that's being produced and not a receipt or something that people would be able to take with them. So it's just important to realize that difference. So we've actually, in a sense, we've gone back, and in a sense, we've gone forward. So we'll be using paper ballots for the spring primary in April. That'll be the first time, and while that's a little bit daunting for us, I think it's the system itself is very intuitive for voters. They're going to be able to either use a touch screen to create a paper ballot, which then gets scanned into a bin at their voting place, or they can fill out the ballot with a pencil, well, a pen really, and then when they're done, they can put that completed ballot in through the same scanner. It's not one of those old-fashioned types of scanners. This is a high-quality photographic image that's going to be created of every single ballot, and we've always used the word cast, cast your ballot. And with this new system, the actual casting of one's ballot occurs when you scan it through the system. So that
how much different? I'm sorry, Doug.
No,
but how much different are these machines than the touchscreen machines that we had been using for roughly the last decade?
Well, the major difference, I would say, is that those touchscreen machines that we were using actually housed votes, housed results. These touchscreens, for lack of a better phrase, are an electronic pen. So that's really their use, is just to give one an easy way to create a paper ballot that, in the end, is scanned just the same as that handwritten ballot. Naturally important to the system itself is a unit for persons with certain disabilities. There's an audio ballot so that you could listen to the ballot on headsets, which you could even do regardless whether you were still had really no other issues, but perhaps that helps you learn better or read better because, really at the basis of this is reading. That's what one has to do to work their way through this paper ballot. So that's a possibility. There's interesting things on the system itself, such as being able to increase the size of print with the touch of a button, changing it from black print on a white screen to white print on a black screen for people that might have low vision. So there are certainly some 21st century factors or conveniences that are with the system that I think will make it very user-friendly. I think the paper ballot, and I have to think most people would agree, is probably the most, it's the most intuitive thing in the world. We've all taken a test or filled out a form in which we fill out an oval, and that's what you're going to do here.
Okay. I wanted to mention too that when you talked about the executive order put out by Governor Wolf, that was kind of prompted by Homeland Security when they did their probe of the 2016 election and noticed and found that there were, I believe, 21 states, including a lot of the swing states like Pennsylvania, that had voter information accessed through hackers, and so that's what prompted the need for this paper record and the mandate for this paper record machine.
That was certainly the final step. I agree. Certainly, there've been, for a number of years, there have been a lot of people who had issues with the electronic system. That is, that they had to put their trust in the operations of this computer as opposed to being able to see something themselves, a receipt. You know, you'd often hear, well, when I go to the bank or I go to the grocery store, I can see what I've done right in front of me.
Just to follow up to that,
Sure.
How are these machines connected to the internet with regard to that cybersecurity that we're just talking about?
Well, this system, as the other system, is not in any way connected to the internet. You know, that hacking attempt was on the voter registration records of certain counties. You know, at no time was the ballot itself under duress. And that's the same here. Our system is closed. It's not even on the county network. It's a separate network altogether. And so it's safe. It really comes down to trusting your election officials. And obviously we have oversight with the Board of Elections, with all the eyes and ears of the community. So we feel that we have a lot of reasons for people to feel safe about the system.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's one question that I get a lot of times from readers is people believe or have heard or have read that voter systems are connected to the internet in some way, and that kind of balloting certainly has never been approved by the federal government, and most of these touchscreen systems are not connected to the internet, which is one thing that a lot of people still seem to believe. So. Yes,
that is absolutely what keeps them safe and blocked from outside influence or hacking. So I think there's probably been some, well, I mean, we're all attuned to this notion of people being able to get into systems. It's part of our lexicon. It's part of our everyday experience, you know, as we do what we do on our own computers. And so they can be assured that the system is safe from that sort of interference.
Okay. Doug, let's talk a little bit about what this system cost, how it was paid for. There are roughly, 320 machines that you guys purchased?
Yes.
And the cost was a little bit under $3 million, I believe.
That's correct.
So can you break down how those were paid for? And
yes. If you don't mind, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. Thank you. About the process itself. After the order from the governor came through, our election board chair, Carl Anderson, formed a committee to do research. We looked at 5 major manufacturers last year, and it wasn't until August that the election board decided to go with Dominion. Dominion is also in Crawford County and Warren County and some other counties around the state. The system, as you noted, Kevin, was about $3 million. That did not include the paper we'll need from year to year. But it was a very good deal for us. Mr. Anderson, in particular, worked very closely with Dominion to make the price point as sharp as we could make it. And so not only does that include 300 scanners, there's also, I take that back, there's about 165 scanners, and there are about 320 touchscreen units, and we will use multiple touchscreens in various locations, but for the most part just one scanner, though there may be 2 in an area such as Washington or some Mill Creek Township areas that are very large.
wanted to mention too that in that cost, we're talking about roughly, I believe it was like 2.99 million.
That's right.
About $1.4 million is going to be reimbursed by the state, and the Help America Vote Act, which is a federal initiative, is giving back, or there was about $318,000 available through that, I believe. So
$318 from that, and we'll get about 1.4 from the state, and so that I'll take that back. It's, as I've crunched the numbers here recently, we're closer to about $1 million. So we're looking at about 1.4 altogether, which is still a significant hedge against the $3 million that taxpayers initially had to pay out.
I know too that the county had to pay that bill up front.
Yes.
How long do you think it'll take to get some of that reimbursement back?
We've already received the $318,000 back, and I expect to get our application for the million or so off in the next day or so, and so we think it'll be about 60 days beyond that. So it should be fairly timely.
All right. People start using these systems with the April 28th primary, correct?
That's right.
And just moving forward, how would you expect? Talk a little bit about the training for the election workers and how that's going, and what you expect people to notice in terms of the changes from the old touchscreen machines.
It's going to be kind of a two-pronged system. We are going to be doing multiple trainings for our poll workers. We believe the system is going to be easier to use for them. Turning it on, so to speak, and closing it down at the end of the day are easier than the old system, as you might imagine, after 13 or 14 years.
They're used to it.
Like everything else, technology has moved ahead and has made it more user-friendly. The biggest thing, like we all face, is change, and sometimes change is more in our head in terms of a thing we fear, a thing that I fear, than what it really is in actual practice. And I think as our poll workers receive multiple trainings, we're going to go with small groups to make the learning go a little bit more in depth. And we're also going to have some public opportunities for voters, poll workers.
Come and try them out.
Anyone,
basically.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll have a system at the courthouse, certainly, but we're looking at libraries. I've been contacted by Representative Mirsky's office, and I think probably we'll work with some others to do some combined events wherein citizens can come in, try them out, and there'll probably be some other offerings in terms of information and so forth. I think people will find them very easy to use. The ADA aspects of the machine, I believe, are better than the old system, but if one has never tried them, they are a bit of a challenge. But I think for those in that community, they're going to find them to be a welcome asset.
Okay. All right. So, Doug, if we can talk a little bit about forecasts in front with the election, especially the primary. Was part of your timetable in actually acquiring these machines? Did that take into account the time you were going to have to train people to get acclimated to them, those kinds of things? Long story short, did you want to acquire these machines rather quickly so you could get that in place for your poll workers to demonstrate to the public to kind of get the word out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, part of the reason for making the decision last fall was to get the machines in as quickly as we could with the Christmas holiday and those sorts of things. It's moved it into January, but we believe we'll be in some sort of shape to begin training by early February, certainly outreach by then. So that part of our thought seems to be working out. I think the relative simplicity of the system itself is going to make, for voters, a very easy transition. The touchscreen you had mentioned is very similar in operation to the last one. It's a big, bright screen, and we believe people will find it easy to use.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Excuse me.
No problem. All right. Well, Doug, we appreciate you coming in, and thank you very much. We'll continue to cover the issues in terms of how these machines work and how people are getting accustomed to them as part of our coverage for the presidential election primary and going into November. So we really appreciate it.
I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Okay.